All right. It appears I am live. Am I live? I am live. I am live. I am live. Happy Friday. Finally, I'm getting over this stuff. Let me get a taste of cider for the working man. Yeah, it's kind of an impromptu stream today, but hopefully that's okay. Let's see. Let me get some things going here. Okay. I thought first, and this is why I've got Twilight 2000 up here, is I could do a little recap. And I might do kind of a formal, I don't know if review's the right word. Oh, I guess so. I mean, people do read reviews, I do reads and give my thoughts, and on this time I actually got to play. So maybe I'll do a formal giving of the thoughts, but just informally. I got to play Twilight 2000 on, I don't know, what was it? On no, on Wednesday. Actually, it was kind of funny. I never really, rarely ever do I have a chance, opportunity to play more than one game in a week. So it was very much a special week for me in terms of getting to play. So that was always fun, or that was nice. A nice change of pace. In any case, Jack, I don't know if I should give his last name. He's got a YouTube channel, but I'm not sure if his YouTube channel is under his full name. I should probably check. But Jack was the GM who's run Twilight 2000 at least one other time. And there was one other player who I think had been in both games, though from what I understand, the scenarios were different. And then there was myself, who had not played Twilight 2000 since I was in high school. And I really barely remember anything about it. I feel like I have to keep prefacing when I talk to people about Twilight 2000. I have some of the old books, or at least I have a couple of the old core materials, or I think I have something around. But I played this back in high school, the original Twilight 2000, and we very quickly started mixing it with TSR's Marvel superheroes. So as you can imagine, it was not exactly a pure Twilight 2000 game. And I don't know if I could say if I ever just played Twilight 2000 just, by the rules. I have memories of things. I have memories of starting the first mission, I think, or the starter thing, which I think was getting across the Dnieper River. And then very quickly, we kind of relocated to New York City. And then but it was New York City. I guess this is one of the other mix-ins. It was New York City as imagined in Escape from New York. And we were in the Empire State Building. I think we made our headquarters, and we were doing all kinds of stuff. And like I said, Marvel superhero stuff was getting mixed in there, and other fantasy elements starting to get mixed in. There was extra planar stuff getting mixed in. We had a lot of fun with it. And, I think one of the things I think is kind of lost a little bit in the internet is just that putting all together and making these crazy Frankenstein games. The game I played was this crazy Frankenstein game, and there was definitely a basis in Twilight 2000. We took the post-apocalypse stuff and at least started off with the weaponry, and the little I know about ammunition from guns comes from Twilight 2000 because I remember all the different ammo types and the frustrations of having a certain gun and not being able to find ammo for that gun because of all the different ammo types. That's kind of my history with Twilight 2000 up until Free League's version came out, and I read through some of the box set. I'm sure you can find that somewhere, stream somewhere if you're interested in such. And so I'd read it then, but I hadn't had a chance to actually play it. So this was the first time, and I streamed on the behind the screens, the other channel. Earlier this week, I streamed, and I guess I'll try to link to it at some point. I streamed my character creation, which was maybe not as fast. Now, granted, everything takes longer when you're streaming it, just in terms of talking through stuff, and it just takes longer. You're just concentrating on two different things. You're concentrating on kind of the camera audience part, and you're concentrating on the book, kind of doing the book stuff. So everything takes longer. But beyond that, a sip of watered down apple cider for the working man. Beyond that, I did think that the rules were lacking something in the clarity department. Not in huge ways, but I'm trying to think now. It's funny. I'll probably be able to find it out. The other thing I have to mention, when I'm streaming something, particularly me, because I go into a lot of stuff blind and I just start ripping through it, is you miss stuff. And, on the stream, this happens when I'm doing reads, when I'm not reading every little thing, but I'm kind of trying to find stuff and I'm skipping stuff. There's a chance that the thing I need when I get to part Z, there's something in part B that I just missed because I jumped from A to C, something like that, right? So I would say a little bit like, apologies if I missed something. So I could have missed it, but the encumbrance is it's not that well explained. It's kind of a really weird. The system's a little bit clunky, I guess I would say. So here's the bit on encumbrance, which I think I actually missed on Wednesday, but it says the weight and bulkiness of your gear is measured in encumbrance units, or just units for short. One encumbrance unit represents an item of roughly 3 kilograms that can be carried in one hand. An assault rifle is a typical example. Smaller items weigh a half or even a quarter unit. And then we see in Chapter 5, we get weights and units of all weapons and other gear. Now, maybe let me see if I can actually, it might be able to pick up hold on a minute. Let me see if I can get an image. I think I downloaded it. At some point, I downloaded my character sheet once I'd filled it out. Did I? Because I know I made a picture of it to share. Oh, you know what? I can get it off of. See, again, this is me being super organized up front. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me get that. Yes. Here it is. Give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's zoom in on here for a minute. Well, let me zoom in first. Can I make this bigger? Actually, can I do one of these things? And then I can do one of these. Okay. I can maybe zoom out. All right, so now we see down here. So this is your gear stuff as shown in your character sheet, right? So you've got. So I had my assault rifle, my PMK, my trusty PMK 60 here, and then you'll see. So what they've done here is they said that okay, one encumbrance unit is one line, or so basically you have a couple different boxes. Maybe I need to zoom out a little bit more. Yeah, so this area here, these first boxes are basically stuff you have kind of on your person. And then these second boxes, I believe, is your backpack, right? Though I guess it's not. Actually, it's equal to your strength die size. Okay, so I didn't even look at that. Let me see. Combat gear, equal to your die size, and combat gear is an 8 units if you have strength C. So I have strength B, so I could carry 10 units. Let me see if I had this correct. I might have actually been encumbered and didn't know it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whew, okay, I had one. I had one left. Okay. So the problem, not the problem, but it's just a little bit tricky. So instead of, this is, I guess, what I find a little bit, I think, so what they've done is they said one of these lines here is 1 unit, and then they break it down into halves and quarters. Which just to me is a little bit, why don't you just make one of these little boxes 1 and then say, 2, 3, and just have 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of having to do 1 and then divide them into halves. I don't know what the, I'm not sure. I guess I can kind of, maybe I can get a sense of why they chose to do it this way. So it's not clear to me how much space a thing should take. It's not obvious. Now, yes, you can go and look it up. But a helmet, from what I understand, your fatigues don't cost anything. They're there. So that's why I put them in tiny, because they're supposed to take up space 0 because you're wearing them. But your helmet takes up 2 spots. Even though presumably you're wearing your helmet on your head, and I am not someone, and I don't think my character was someone either, who was probably going to be carrying stuff on their head. So what could I have put on my helmet besides maybe another helmet, a fedora hat, a beret, perhaps? What could I put on my head now that I can't? So it takes up 2 slots, but what slots is it taking? Like, what is, if I put the helmet on my head, what was the alternative? Was I going to put ammo on my head? Was I going to put my basic toolkit on my head? Was I going to put my personal medkit on my head? It doesn't, that part doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, maybe this is if I was carrying my helmet, although I have my helmet under my arm, which may be fair enough. But it's, because it runs this thing because it's abstracted. We're not talking about what's literally in our hands. All this stuff is just kind of at hand, and we can assume that your assault rifle is either in your hand or maybe it's slung over your shoulder. It doesn't matter, right? And then doing the half and the quarters, and then you have to dig up all those things which are kind of spread around. Because I think something that I think a couple of us mentioned in the game is that it really could use a page or two of just those kind of tables that you would get in the. I mean, they're so, you see them so often, almost all the time in every other kind of game book. Is either in the inside covers or somewhere is a whole bunch of tables that's just like, here's all the equipment. Here's all the equipment you can get, and here's the things about it. So that at a glance, if you need something, you can look it up, as opposed to having to go to the gear and then flip through the pages to find the gear. And then the gear is split up into nationalities. So you got to remember, if you don't know, like for me, it was, I knew because I picked a Polish person. So I went to the Polish weapons, and I actually went ahead and I wrote, I did it. I was a good player. I wrote all my stuff down. But if I needed to find this gun, if I hadn't written it down, there's not one, okay, I could just go to this page or the back of the book or even a handout. Like, yeah, here's all the stuff. Excuse me. So it's a little bit, I feel like between the encumbrance system, which goes, and I guess getting back to the encumbrance, right? So we go, instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, where you say, okay, and it doesn't totally make sense, right? I guess it would be convenient if it were 4 kilograms. And so you can have, okay, it's 4 kilograms, takes up 1 row, which is a 1 kilogram, 2 kilogram, right? And then maybe because I think the other thing is you're looking at weight. Again, they're abstracting everything. So I don't think this is just bulkiness, but it's like bulkiness plus weight. So maybe the helmet isn't bulky, but it weighs. And so the weight is part of the thing you carry, even though it's kind of on your head. Okay, but it's you could say, okay, it's the weight, but the weight, 3 kilograms and 4, it's 4 squares. You'd like to maybe say, hey, 4 kilograms, 4 squares. And if it means that you got to fudge the numbers, I mean, we're fudging numbers anyway, because we're abstracting it, that I might have gone that way and said that, hey, a assault rifle takes up 4 things. Instead of making the bigger things the default, maybe make the smaller things. I don't know, but you do run into the problem of, you have something like vehicle tools, which takes up 3 slots, or 12. I guess you just say 12. It's not that big a number. I don't know if anything takes up more than that. And this, coming up with the encumbrance stuff, just took me longer, I think, than was maybe than it needed to be. The other thing I would say, and I know it's been a long time since I looked at the original Twilight 2000. I know that these letter ratings I'm pretty sure come from the original one. I think the original one had some, was it playing cards mechanics? They had some different things going on. But in the in the Free League version, these letters essentially never come up. The only thing you're doing is you're maybe saying the letter to then say the number. Oh, I'm strength B, so okay, die size 10. It's fine when we were talking as a group. I guess let me back up first. So I decided to make this guy. His name is Felix Cerny. I went with a Polish Army corporal. I don't know what the Polish translation would be, or how to pronounce it. I'm thinking Caporal is corporal, but someone could correct me if I'm wrong. And a couple things I like about the characterization, and I'll because the attributes and skill stuff is fine when you're going through it. And it's more in game where I found the ratings to be just a little bit superfluous. It's not terrible. I mean, D&D has some numbers that are more or less superfluous for the most part. That's fine. But I like the moral code. I just picked the one because I was kind of I went through the archetype system. I'm not going to go through everything because you can go to the other stream and see everything. But I picked a picked a moral code, and you pick a dream, which is kind of your goal. And then your experience points. If we were playing this as a campaign, we just play it as a one shot. That I think the big dream stuff will come up more often, because part of your experience, which I like, is that when you engage with your moral code or your dream in a way that actually, and I've played around with this myself in some things, this concept of no one's going to tell you got to stick to your moral code, but if you go if you do something that's towards your moral code and it actually adds difficulty, or it adds chance of failure, it adds, it actually complicates things, then you get an experience point. And then I think the same thing with your big dream. So you can't just, you're sitting alone in the field and everything's useful and say, oh, I'm going to plant a tree here because my big dream is about trees. Like, it doesn't work that way, because there's no threat. You're not making things tougher on yourself, right? You got to do it. You got to engage with it in a way that kind of has risk and consequences and that sort of thing. But if you do that, you get experience points. And I like that. And I've always liked these kinds of systems. I've always liked alignment as kind of a very broad shortcut to something like that in D&D, where you kind of, and I know D&D never really attached experience points to alignment, things like that, but I just like the idea of having this very quick, you can drag and drop one of these moral codes and big dreams. They have some in the archetypes, and you can go with it, or you can write your own. I just went with the ones that were there, but I just like it as a something to potentially influence the way you play, something to, oh shoot, I just realized, for reals, I'm unlisted. Oh my gosh. I've been talking to myself. For real? I had it as unlisted and I thought I was live. Hold on a minute. Now I gotta check. Oh, what did you do to me, YouTube? Hold on a second. Now I gotta start all over. Do I gotta start all over? Maybe later. All over. Am I live? All right. God darn it. Gosh, nabbit. Okay. I didn't realize. Oh, YouTube. I was just chatting away thinking nobody was here because I didn't really mention that I was streaming or doing anything. And it turns out that it was my privacy on, not private, but whatever the other one is, where it's basically not shared. Oh, glug, 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 glug. Oh, brother. Okay. Well, I was talking about Twilight 2000, talking to myself because I thought I was live. And I was live, but it was recording it. So if you're joining now, you'll see that I was recording for about 20 minutes, but 18 of those minutes I was just talking to myself. That's just how it works. That's how it works for me. I haven't been doing this for a week or so on the channel, and, come back and screw the pooch right off the bat. All right, so I'm not going to rehash what I said before. It's not that important. I was just pretty much talking about Twilight 2000 and character creation, and that I felt like the gear and the encumbrance was a little bit iffy. I see now that there is a little bit about it, but I just found it, the gear in general, not having a organized list of gear that you can, a master list, I think is a little bit of a missed opportunity. Let me just take another swig of cider here. I also mentioned this briefly that I like the moral code and the big dream. Good stuff. Okay, so Jack was the DM, and he had run Twilight 2000 before. Not for me. This is my first game of Free League Twilight 2000. I don't know how many he's run. There were 3 players and then him as the GM. One of the other players was in the other game. Another player and myself were new. I had gone through, which I did on the stream, and I had created my character, Felix Cerny, and I actually did a pretty good job actually filling out everything I needed. And having filled out everything, I didn't have to reference the book. I just had my iPad. I have the box set, which is somewhere, but I just had my iPad with everything on it, and it worked. It worked very well. I was fine. In fact, I I brought the PDF on my iPad as well, not for myself, but because I could help in case there was only one copy of the book, and other folks who had not gotten ahead of the game like I had made their character could kind of look things up, or if we needed to look things up during the game. It's always nice to have more than one book, basically. So from what I understand, the other time they ran the game, they ran a different kind of scenario. They ran more of a wilderness traveling scenario. We ran, and I forget what they call it in the book. It's a different kind of scenario. I think it's a site. Was it a site-based scenario? Do I dare go open the referee's manual? Well, yes, I do dare. Scenario site. Sorry, it was a scenario site adventure. And I guess we'll be spoiling because I think the one they ran, or one he ran, was out of the book. I think he just ran one right out of the book. It was, let me see, I'll get to it, and then, oh, not America Town. No, not the Children's Crusade. The Burnt Town. So spoilers for the Burnt Town, because I'm gonna be spoiling the Burnt Town. So if you intend to, and the thing is, which I really all credit to Jack, and we'll get into a little bit on the Burnt Town. But at first he said that he pretty much ran it. By the way, he didn't try to add anything, and he's a very experienced GM. He's run a lot of different systems. He didn't try to add anything. I think he ran it. He wanted to run everything pretty much as is. And we used this map. There are, in the box set, you actually have these as separate pieces. And here we get some of the folks who are in it. I was just going to see. Oh, wow. It's always funny to see how things kind of work out. So in this scenario, which is the Burnt Town, as the name implies, we get to the town and it has been burning. Actually, he did put in kind of not a postscript. What would you call it? A prescript? He did put in a slight. Okay, so here's how we started off. We were in a car driving towards the town. Excuse me, and our car broke down. Actually, what happened was, let me rephrase that. And here's my handy dandy notes that I took from that night. Hey, Frederick, my birthday was good. Went to this indoor water park in New Jersey with my wife and daughter, and had dinner out there. Thanks for asking. So back to the burnt village, or burnt town, I should say. I put burnt village in my notes, but it's the burnt town. Our car. So I think so as we were basically the scenario begins basically when you get to town. He gave us a slightly kind of a something to do before that, which was basically we had an encounter kind of on the road, and it was just some hunters. And it was, I guess, because I asked him, like, well, why the what was the kind of the purpose of the hunters encounter? And I think he just put it in to kind of to ease us into things, give us a chance to get some information. I mean, we could potentially have gotten in trouble. So basically, we're driving on the road and we see one of us made a spot check. It wasn't me. I think I was at the wheel, but it doesn't matter. One of us made a spot check. We see some hunters. They're not pointing at the road. We see hunters in the trees. I guess the idea was we're coming kind of downhill because when you think of the information we got, it only kind of makes sense if we're sort of looking down, as maybe we're coming down into a valley or coming down off of a hill. We can see some hunters, and they're in these trees kind of off the road, but they're pointed down. They're pointed down. Their guns are pointed down, kind of not at the road. It basically doesn't look like they are set up as an ambush. And then there's one guy who's kind of in a ditch beside the road, and he's warming his hands by a fire or something like that. So we determined, or at least we made the assumption, I guess I should say, that it wasn't an ambush. So we slowed down and talked to the guy, and so we did get some intel on the town, but it wasn't much. It's basically, something's going on there. It used to be kind of a safe, nice place, but we saw fires from there, and we haven't been, but it seems like there might have been a fire. So then we continue moving. Our car breaks down. We need to get car parts. And so we need to get, what the game does is the game basically abstracts different things you need into different kinds of parts. So we needed 2 vehicle parts. So we get to the town, or we approach the town, with our objective at that moment being, okay, we need vehicle parts. And so that's when we kind of got to the official start of, here we have in the book the situation. And then from here, and the town was Glavice, I guess, right? And we arrive at Twilight. The town has been burning, and there's still smoke. I think it's not on fire at the moment, but there's obviously signs, smoke and ash and burnout, everything. It's not, and it's not fire from the World War III apocalypse. It's more recent than that. And we start running into people. We run into some survivors. They are, and I think these were all, and I think what Jack did, and let me see if I actually can get the book out. Hold on a second. If I only knew I'm looking in the wrong place for my Twilight 2000 book. So I think he ran this entire thing, because if you notice here in this recap, or in this layout of the adventure, there's not a whole lot here. We get a couple of map pieces, and they come as boards in the box set. I don't know if you can get the game in anything other than a box set. So, and I have my box set here, which I will, let me pop it out so you can see. So you get, this is not the right one, but you get something like that. A couple of these, they're letter sized, essentially, that you can lay out, which you did. So we had the town layout, and we had our chits that we used for pieces, to put ourselves on the board. Though it didn't really make too much of a difference, except at the end, because we kind of stayed together for the most part. So there was really we just always were this kind of little stack of chits. Frederick said there was a series of Twilight 2000 and Paranoia crossover adventures back in the day. I believe it. It makes sense to me. So I believe what Jack did, and he can, if he corrects me, he can. He was using these encounter cards. So you get these encounter cards, right? And so something like this one. Now they have there's a notation, with some symbology that tells you kind of when they can occur. So some of these can't occur. Some of these will only occur in certain circumstances. Like I think the one I just showed you, it's I think road. I don't know if that's during the day, campsite, right? Other ones will be in different areas, and I think he thinks that the way it works. Let me see if I can find. Is there one that has town specifically? House on fire. It's a farm. Yeah, this one. Yeah, I don't know if maybe the I don't know if the campsite. So here's one. I think this is the one that we had, actually. So you get this faction, right? So you got I don't think we have the cards in this. It'd be nice to pull up the cards. Hold on a second. Let me see. Organization being what it is. Mine, that is. Let's see. If I go to my library and drive through, and I go to Twilight, I'm going to get a bunch of stuff, but I think, okay. Cold War, no, Twilight 2000, yes, but not the one I want. Where's the Twilight 2000 rules? No. Hold on a minute. Hang with me here. Almost there, I think. What are you doing? Where's Free League? Is it under their other name? No. Okay, there's Free League. Ugh. Okay. Trying to get this down. Why is it not? No, I don't. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Reference manual. Battle map. Cards. Combat targets. Cards. Card fronts. I'm going to assume it's card fronts. Let's see if this works. All right, card fronts. Okay, no, wait, that's initiative. Is that going to have? I need. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. Ooh. Wait a minute. I need. Let's see. No. Oh, that's. Oh, I need. Oh, sorry. I need 7 of diamonds. Here we go. There we go. Okay, I think we actually got this encounter. Okay. All right. Slowly but surely, we're getting there. So you kind of see this thing that you can kind of see how they have these cards set up. So we have faction over here. One, you have the location they can take place. I want to say this maybe is a town or a safe spot, right? This is during the day. I'm not sure. Maybe this takes place. Maybe this is all of them. I'd have to go through and look at these again. There were other ones like the forest fire that clearly don't take place inside a town. Some of them take place there during the night. It's a pretty neat little system. And I think what he did, which I think was clever, was take these, and maybe this is what you're supposed to do, but again, having not run it before, I'm not going to say that is, you get these, you see the faction, right? Okay, and so in this case, it's easy. The faction is civilian, and you just run it. So we get into the town. Hey, okay, not Terrence, Tristan. Hey, Tristan says the last symbols for camp. Okay. In any case, he was just using these cards as we're figuring out. So in the scenario, we have. Oh, and I got rid of. Man, I'm like all over the place. In the scenario, right. Where we go? We gotta get back to the scenario. Oh no, that's that's the player's guide. Sorry, I wasn't in the right place. Okay. So in the scenario, you have this situation, which is fine. It kind of tells you what's going on. Then you've got a countdown until these marauders show up, and then you have a set of marauders. You've got the I guess the authority who's kind of in the town. So I guess if you set it up right in this town, we have an authority who is this guy Ostrovsky. Then we have the what do they call her? The Lady of Pain? No. Yes. Lady of Pain, Queen of Pain, who is leading this marauder. So if you have the authority, you have the marauders, and then you have this third party, and I'll call him a wild card, who's Radomia. You have those three. Okay. So then once you've got these set up and we have some locations, so we know that you got stuff at the church, we know there are tunnels, there's a stockpile. This is kind of where we were trying to get to, this hidden storeroom. This is where we had to get to eventually. There's a water tower and there's a library. That's it. So you have these main locations, and I don't even know if they really tell you where they are on the map. You could probably just put them wherever you want. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. Then you have some NPCs. They give you the map. Okay, you do have it. So the library, yep, is down there. The church is here, right? And you got the water tower. So you have your key locations. And I think that's it for what they give you. Oh, no. And then you have these events. But everything is just dynamic. It's all about what you're doing. I'm trying to see if we ran into any events. So the events you have are, let's see, the PCs meet Captain Ostrovsky with a few soldiers in tow. He's willing to get the player characters resources if they help him find Roman and Radomia. We did end up running. I don't know if we ran into this or we got there by our own initiative, but we didn't ever meet Ostrovsky until the end. Radomia approaches. She wants to assess the PCs and decide if she can trust them. I think we did get this event. Civilians try to sneak out of town. We definitely didn't get that one. Marauders are looking to find the entrance to the underground storage room. We might have gotten this one. PCs meet civilians. D10, badly hurt survivors call for help. Okay, so we definitely got this one. The firefight broke out. And we got this one. The house that's untouched. and I think we might have gotten that one. But then on the other thing is why it was started me on this whole thing to begin with, he definitely used this one because I remember a group of refugees starving and hypothermic and desperate. They plead with the PCs for food and protection. Several suffer from dysentery and the PCs risk being infected. The reason why I think we got this one as opposed to what was in the book is he gave us a visual of them like vomiting. What's the word I used here? Puking black slime, which to me, I don't know if that's actually what happens with dysentery or did he make that up? But in any case, it made me think this as opposed to the just the meeting some. But it doesn't matter. So you essentially have these. You have these locations. You've got. First it says lovely. Yes. Puking black slime is very much lovely. So the setup of this scenario site, right, is you have these factions that are set up. They're in opposition with a wild card, and the PCs kind of get thrown into the mix. And then you can use the events they have, or you can use the cards, maybe use both. I'm not sure. I have to ask him what he used, if he used more than one of these things at once. And you just kind of go with it and you play. And now I don't know. I was a player. Okay, I wasn't GM, so I wasn't responsible for having to do a lot of the pivoting and figuring and all that stuff, right? So I can't speak to how much brain power it took Jack to run through all these options and do that. But from a play perspective, and at least my assessment of it was that as a system, just you got this place, you got this stuff, we have a rough set of locations, these maps. There is one, I think he actually used it. He has a couple of the other expansions for it. So he actually had one of these cardboard kind of maps that had underground so that he was able to use it for the underground tunnels. It was something like this, but it had underground tunnels. He used that for the underground when we got there. And really, it's just about maneuvering around. And what I like about this, and all these things I always thinking about the back of my head, like this is cool. And I wonder, like, what can I kind of learn from this? What can I glean from this for my own stuff, right? Assuming I'm not going to be playing Twilight 2000, that I'm going to be playing kind of fantasy games, which is it's been, it's pretty much my favorite genre, I guess, though I would definitely play Twilight 2000 again. It was a lot of fun. I think that that's an interesting model that I'm going to explore some more with kind of setting up sort of setting up. So I guess what I was getting into with this is, right, so you have this encounter with these factions. So you roll the civilians. There are other ones, I'm presuming, if I go up through these. Oops, wrong. Let's see. So, like, okay, no faction. Soviet military. Yeah, so, well, let me see if they have. So, Marauder. So, here's one, right? So, you have an encounter here. Marauder roadblock can happen day, night, and I guess it's on the road, right? And I'll just read the text. Marauders at a roadblock. They have AKMs, one RPG-16 with one reload, a pickup truck with half a tank, and a DSHK machine gun with one reload, and 2d6 rations 2d6 rations of domestic food. The Marauders try to capture or kill the PCs. If they are captured, the Marauders bring them to their leader. The Marauders flee if half of them are incapacitated. So here's the setup, right? Now, imagine if we were going to transform this into a D&D encounter. You might just say brigands, right? Okay, brigands are on the road. Fine. And on a certain level, yeah, that's great. Brigands. Your Marauders are your brigands. But the thing here is that in this scenario site, right, it's not just we can substitute in the scenario we're playing. If you end up with the Marauder faction, you substitute the Marauder faction that you've already got in the game. So what you can do then is say, okay, well, we know who the Marauders are in this case. It's where is she? Is she here? It's the Queen of Pain. She is the kind of Marauders here, which I think it says. All right, if we zoom in here. Yeah, so for several months before the fire, there was a conflict between the leader of the town, Captain Ostrovsky, and a nearby group of Marauders led by the Queen of Pain, right? So the Marauders is a faction, but it really is a generic faction label. And if you were just running and you pulled that card out in the middle of you were doing a travel segment, and that card came out, then sure, it could just be some random Marauders. You could just roll up or do whatever to pull up a random Marauders. It doesn't matter, right? The world is, in this setting, the world, there's no shortage of Marauder groups. Easy peasy. But what you can also do is look at that Marauders as a label and see that the Marauders is not, not to introduce a new faction of Marauders, but to look at in your scenario, who is the Marauder faction in your scenario, and it's them. Am I making sense? So imagine if you had an encounter in like your OSR game, and instead of saying 3d6 bandits are by the side of the road, you would use another word, like maybe use Marauders, right? 3d6 Marauders, but when you read that you don't take Marauders literally. I mean, you can, but it's also that substitute whoever is the Marauders in this region or sector or in your scenario. So if I say like, okay, the Goblin Chief and the Goblins are invading the lands, those are the Marauders. So then whenever I see an encounter with Marauders, I just substitute the Goblin Chief or the Goblins Band in there. I substitute the Goblins Band into the Marauders, and then that's great. And then in the next, down the line, now it's, I don't know, the evil Baron, his men who are ravaging the countryside. Then I can have that same encounter. I don't have to change out my encounter and write in it, oh, I got to edit my encounters, take out Marauders and put in the evil Baron's men. I just take that same thing and Marauders, and now I say, oh, the Marauders are the evil Baron's men. And so I just substitute them in there. It's like if you put in brackets Marauders. Tristan says it makes random encounters less random and have more narrative weight. Well, yes. I mean, it just makes them more. I don't know if narrative weight's an interesting way to put it. I think what you can do is it just gives everything together, right? We're in this town. We're in a scenario where we know we only have 3 factions, and by having a generic system like they're doing, where they're giving you kind of a lot of detail on the activities, but then they're putting these generic labels on who's committing those activities, who's having these activities done to them. You can use all these same encounters, even with all that specificity, and just insert whoever it represents those factions. So I'll do this on another stream because I thought it was really interesting. I was like, oh, what could, if I just wanted to make a generic set of fantasy ones, like what could they be? And I started thinking about, like, I could have the authority, the anti-authority, the threat, and whatever. And so you could kind of take all these and just plug it in to say the threat is, the threat is holding whatever hostage, and you could add another label, right? And then you could just say, well, whoever's the threat that I have written down in this adventure or in this region or whatever, that's who you insert into there. And you could have, if you wanted to be more like, well, I got, if you want to say like, I got, 20 factions, and it can't always be the same guy. It's like, well, then you could have another die if you wanted to roll a die and have another table. But it just was a really handy kind of thing. And I really liked the way that worked. And, if we look at the cards, you do get some nice specificity, right? We get now if we were going to make it more generic, you probably wouldn't put all the details with the weaponry, but in this kind of game, it's fine. I mean, you could, because you just, it's like, it's the Baron's men. They've got short swords and short bows and daggers, right? And some armor. And you could, and then, and the goblins, they've got short bows and short bows and short swords and daggers. You could probably have the same thing. But in any case, you kind of get this interesting thing. It's a roadblock, and you do get some things about, hey, they're trying to capture or kill the PCs, but they're going to capture them. And this is the other thing I think that I wanted to highlight, just in general, in broad strokes about the game, which I think that it gets kind of lost in the shuffle in the lethality of stuff. We only got into 2 firefights and we played for a good stretch. We played for probably about, I don't know, 3 hours, 4 hours, between 3 and 4 hours, let's say. We only got into 2 firefights, and one we got the drop, And I don't think there was any way we could have talked our way through it. Maybe we could have, but it didn't seem like it. I mean, we got the drop on the dude, so we were able to take him out basically in an ambush. And then the second one was the climax of the whole thing. So we only had 2 firefights. So we're going in town. We didn't really get, and I don't know if this is not, and this is not I wouldn't say this is a failing on Jack's part. He didn't express to us, well, here's how combat works. Like, I think one of the things that I did when I brought in some new players to play OSR games, I would tell them how combat works. I showed them, here's how combat works, so that they can see and get a sense of not just how it works mechanically, but, you're level 1. You've got 1d6 hit points. And I usually will max out, but whatever. Let's say you have 6 hit points. Okay, you have 6 hit points. You're level 1. And I usually do flat dice, everything d6s. And I say, okay, right, you got 6 hit points, right? You're feeling good. You're feeling good. Are you feeling good? You're feeling strong for, first level. Like, you might be thinking, oh, I got max hit points. I'm got to be feeling as good as I can, right? I got an edge. Okay, well, now let's go look at the weapon damage. All right. Average, well, I mean, all the weapons pretty much. Look at the damage. D6. That's right. So if you go according to Hoyle, you will last, 2 rounds of combat before you are dead. Right? That is your limit. You could take 3 hits in 1 round and 3 hits in another. You basically not 2 rounds, but you're going to get 2 hits. And depending on what class you are, you might look at your armor class, right? If maybe you're a fighter and you had a lot of money, so you can go and get some heavy armor. You might feel pretty good. But you who are the wizard and you're in a robe, you're not that hard to hit, and you're pretty easy to kill. And I tell the players beforehand, because I want them to understand, because I think understanding that without even having to say much else will get the wheels turning in terms of what to do when you run into potential hostiles. Is you might not be so run and gun when you've been told, you understand, and we've gone through the there's no death saves, it's just 0, you kick off or whatever, right? You're done. Then you're more likely, I think, to be like, well, gee, we better see some goblins, and they don't see us yet. Can we go another way? Can we figure something out? Do you speak goblin? Right? I think all those things start to come out. I mean, I suppose there's some players for who they will not care, and they'll just assume that the GM will protect me. That's usually another thing I point out, I'm not going to protect you. So Jack didn't go through and give us the combat rundown, but given that we're using guns, it's I look at it as a fairly, realistic in the sense where we're not playing, it's not a Rambo kind of game. So the whole thing about that is we were very, you want to call it gun shy? Do you want to call it we were not just throwing down at the drop of a hat. Okay. So when we would run into these different factions, different people, we would talk to them. That was our thing. At one point we surrendered. We were, where were we? I'm saying I could probably look at one of these maps. Where's the map? Okay, here we go. We were here. Okay. And we were searching around, and we found a vehicle part. So we started off, we came into town. We ran into some civilians here, which I think was this encounter, or one of these encounters. Whichever one of these encounters it was. Yeah, we think it was this, might not have been. And there was someone who was wounded, and one of the other players was playing a doctor, a medic. So we healed them. And then we ran into, and that might have been, he might have been doing a combination of the cards and the encounters from here. So we're tending, or the medic is tending to this person, and that's when the strong man, the local authority, if you will, and his folks show up, and they're shepherding everybody towards the church. And these lay side by side. So basically you go east and you kind of follow that way. And, he asked who are you, whatever. And we're like, hey man, we've been helping, we were helping these guys out. We're not hostile. We just came into town and saw what the heck's going on. We got a medic who's here, trying to heal this person. We are not, we're not your enemy. We're not hostile. And so they were like, all right, come to the church. So we go to the church, and I then start hanging out with their guys setting up tents and things at the church. and I start talking to them, helping out, doing tents and stuff, trying to get the skinny on what's going on. We were not likely to just start opening fire on people because there's nothing, I think we understood implicitly that, that's just not going to end well. Like we can't get into a firefight in this town. Maybe at the end, which we'll have to, but certainly not, we need to try to do. So we're doing all the kind of bargaining and negotiations when we got stuck in the church because they wanted everybody in the church. And then we're looking at like, man, we got to get out of this church because we want to search around the town. And we didn't know who we wanted it. We were kind of slow on the uptake of the kind of faction of like who to get in with. So we were just kind of like, let's just get out of this. Let's get out of here. And let's see if we can kind of find parts in town and just see whatever. So then we were wandering over this way. And we didn't know that the library was kind of headquarters. We end up in these buildings. We come out of the buildings and there are the Marauders troops. Marauders guys are right coming out of the library. They got us dead to rights. Guess what? Again, no firefight. We didn't die for cover. Now, I kind of, it's one of those things. In this situation, I acted first. So I can't say that if we played that out, say 20 out of 20 times, we'd have done this all 20 times. Because maybe if I decided not to speak up, maybe one of the other guys would have been like, I jumped for cover and tossed my grenades or something like that could have happened. But as it stood, we see that we've got these guys coming out and we're kind of looking it over and we put our hands up. We're like, all right, we'll come, take us to your leader. Because we assumed like, well, this must be the other faction we've heard about. Well, we'd heard about there were 3 people. Ostrovsky, these guys are over the church. Rodemia, who is the kind of the wild card, and then this Queen of Pain, I think. So we're like, okay, you're gonna take us to one of these people or another. So let's go do it. Now they didn't take our guns away, and I don't know if that was just a mistake, but it actually got mentioned. So I don't know if he forgot and then he brought it up later. But we go inside, and I think I was trying to be cool. I put my hand on we had 2 hand grenades each. I put my hand kind of on my hand grenades. I thought, well, if they try to get my guns, I'm gonna do like one of those a cool Hollywood thing where I was gonna have my guy pop his grenade, but keeping the hand on the whatever the trigger, whatever it's called. Tristan, if you're still here, you could tell me whatever it's called, whatever it is that you arm it, but then it doesn't actually start to go until you pop that trigger. Keep your hands on it. So I kind of had my hand down there, but we go in and we have a meeting and we end up saying, she's like, look, we'll get, we need to find this. Oh, the spoon. Oh, thanks. I knew you would know. And so we make a deal. Hey, we're trying to find Rodemia and her brother because her brother is sort of the linchpin of the whole thing because he knows where the strongman stash is, and the stash is where we could find our vehicle parts. We had 1 vehicle part that we'd found. We still need another one. And if we do that, we can somehow do that, then we can get the car parts. They don't care about us. They'll let us go. And, I was thinking to myself, like these are the kind of things that situations what I like that I think sometimes we don't get as much of in OSR games. And I wonder if it's because a lot of creatures you're dealing with are monsters. And so just in your brain, you don't necessarily put 2 and 2 together that, hey, we can, look, there are a lot of groups that will talk to everybody. I'm not trying to say there aren't and, take the different languages and stuff. But I think for a lot of folks, when they see goblins or kobolds, it's just attack, or orcs, like, attack. And they don't think like, let's make a deal. I think the other thing is, I think similar to, there was that great blog post that's old, but it talked about playing, what was the name of the Western, TSR's Western game? Shoot, I can't think of it now. I keep thinking in my brain Top Secret, but not Top Secret. It was Boot Hill. That Boot Hill has all these rules for gunfights, which are brutally lethal, and really no rules for anything else. And the GM, the referee running this game, discovered that because the gunfights were so brutal in Boot Hill, that their players started to do everything they could to not have to gunfight if they didn't have to, and then if they had to try to get everything in their advantage as they could. And I think there's a similar effect going on here for us, that we all kind of at least understood or had adopted the idea that, yeah, man, combat, is going to kill us. We're going to get shot. We're going to die, kind of thing. So we weren't quick to just grab guns, and the other folks weren't either. which I think is another key thing, right? You as a player or you as a GM can try to play this of like, yeah, man, combat's brutal, so we're all going to kind of try to get into talky stuff and maneuvering and which is I think was where I think I have a lot of the fun. Probably the most fun of is the factions. Who could we? What did we tell the Marauders? What did we tell those other guys? How can we try to? We're kind of making deals with both of them in a way. We kind of said like, oh, we'll try to do this, we try to do that. Now the girl's over here, maybe we try to help her. How can we try to do all this stuff right? We're doing the classic Clint Eastwood Man with No Name in A Fistful of Dollars. Like, what can we do? Where can we go? And I think that works partially because you just don't want to fight. But when you have to fight, you can't. And when we had to go down the tunnels and we were kind of walking around, and one of our the medic actually had night vision goggles. So he was able to help us get the drop on a couple of guards, and it didn't. I don't know how we could. Maybe we could have talked our way through that one too. It seemed a stretch. Other guards, we're not part of that faction. We have no reason to be down there. But we were able to kind of get take them out in basically one round, basically in a surprise round. We were able to take them out and then get into the stash. And then we got into I think it was fun is that at the end of the scenario we did have this big firefight where we actually came out, I think, of this building here, and they're fighting across us. We tried to throw a grenade and it bounced back, almost blew us up. Then I went running towards to get the car because I had the 2 car parts. I think we were kind of running out of time, so we sort of winked a little bit with the numbers, at least for me in terms of repairing the car. I go running this way. The girl who had gotten we had teamed up with a girl but she was going back to check on her brother, so she's running across this way. So the other 2 party members are running that way too. Ostrovsky shows up. There's this little gunfight here. The not the medic, but the other player tried to impose themselves between the girl and the strongman and got shot. The medic dove in to try to get, because he got shot in the gut, and there's they have a nifty hit location, just simple hit location dies. So, it's in the gut. And then in the best kind of Hollywood endings, one of those sort of dark mixed, you'd call it a mixed success or a victory with a cost. They're in close quarters here. They're shooting at each other. The girl shoots the strong man, wounds him, doesn't put him down. Then but the strong man fails his morale roll. And so it's like he was suppressed, so he wasn't doing anything. But his lieutenant here did not get suppressed. Turns and fires, crits the girl, and it was a headshot. So basically just to the head, took her out. Then he wasn't interested in continuing things, but he killed the girl, and then he left. I'm off the map here trying to get the car fixed. The other two, they make it here to the water tower, which is where the brother is. They go up in the medic, trying to get the brother to come down because we promised the girl and the brother we would get them out in our car, because that was kind of the deal we made. Like, you help us get to the stash, we'll get you and your brother out of town. And the brother's up there, and he knew where the stash was, but the sister came with us, right? That's the girl. So he's up there, and he's like, where's my sister? Where's Rhodamia? And the medic looks at him and says, she's down there, but we have to go. And it was just like everyone, we're all like, oh, not a lie. She is down there. Her head's blown out like a Gallagher watermelon, but she is down on the ground. And then, as the firefight is moving kind of in the village, we were able, I rendezvoused, they kind of hustled down here. I met them here and went, and we ran out of town. And it was a really fun, just really thematic little one-shot adventure. Let's see. Tristan says, I think people inherently understand that guns mean high lethality. Players have an instant frame of reference for how much damage a firearm can do. That probably makes sense. Yeah, I would agree with that. But it works well. Now, I don't know, I was making this, looking at it kind of like, well, what if I was going to bring this into an OSR game? I mean, I think for the most part, you kind of have that. At least at your low levels, your party is vulnerable and they may be more likely to make deals. I think it also helps. And I think there's, not that it's insurmountable, but I think the fact that you're fighting, you're dealing with other people. I think I just think that for a lot of just player wise, you're less likely to start gunning down or murdering your fellow humans. Whereas in a game where it's, they're elves or dwarves or halflings, where, you might, maybe you as a player have fondness for some of the other kind of, quote unquote traditions, quote unquote kind of good right? Species like, oh, you're elves, you're dwarves, you're halflings. Oh, but then if it's an orc or a goblin or something else, you're less likely to want to bargain with them maybe than you are when it's humans. But I think the thing is for us in this situation was that the scenario, we're not on anybody's particular team. The girl, Rhoda this kind of wild card character, she was the one who was responsible for burning down a bunch of stuff in town. I think trying to get revenge on the strong man for, I guess, hurting her brother. We never really got the full story. I suppose I could read it, but I won't. So she wasn't exactly great. The Queen of Pain. I mean, she's called the Queen of Pain. She's leading a bunch of marauders. She doesn't seem particularly good. And then we got an intel that the strong man was started off kind of good, but was getting more tyrannical and controlling. So he wasn't exactly good either. So he also had this kind of like, well, nobody's really the good. I mean, the civilians are kind of caught in the middle, right? But no one's really like, oh, here's the good person we must support. It's like everyone's kind of shades of gray, maybe even a dark gray. And for us, it was like, again, like like you might in a Clint Eastwood kind of thing, where you're not tied into these. You have no relation to them. You have no particular. You don't owe them anything. You have your own objective you're trying to do, but you have to navigate these factions to get there. And it seems like this kind of thing would. I think you could take elements of this, or even all of it, and really map it onto kind of OSR. Not even just. I mean, just kind of your fantasy games. If you're doing, especially if you're doing kind of a points of light ish kind of thing, because this would work really well. It's post apocalyptic, right? Everything's kind of gone to hell in a handbasket with just these little sanctuaries who may not even be all that safe, but they're better than out there. But you got to deal with folk, and I think that's the key, right? The game, and I can't even say that it's the rules, right? Whatever, it was just like you have to deal with folk. You can't just murder. You can't just go murder hoboing. You have to deal with them, and then figuring out how you can deal with them and stay in one piece and not make promises that you can't keep, or not make promises you can't get out of if you need to. That was kind of the puzzle, and it worked out really well. So, first of all, hats off to Jack for running the game. It was a good game. I think that this one, for various reasons, ran better. I get the sense than the other game, than the travel game did, but they're kind of different animals. And I think I wasn't there obviously for the travel game, and I think that they maybe they didn't have a strong, I think, a set of goals. We had a very strong goal, which was get the parts. Now, get the parts and then get out. It's possible we could have rolled, because we're rolling, we're checking stuff. So there's a chance we did find randomly, we found one set of vehicle parts, and it's possible we might have been able to find both sets of vehicle parts and not had to interact directly with the factions. I mean, obviously, as the referee, Jack could have put his finger on the scale and said they're just not going to find them. But to his credit, he didn't, and we ended up getting enmeshed with the factions anyway. So it didn't matter. I mean, maybe he did. I mean, I'm just thinking about this now. It is possible that because we weren't really moving on the map. It's possible he could have put us in this knowing that the Marauders were there, but it doesn't really matter, right? The thing was, I think, is just it was very much kind of dynamic, open ended. I think him as a GM is really just, you've got these factions, you've got these kind of pieces on the board, and then as the party's making their moves, all these other factions are moving. You've got kind of a ticking clock, and you've got these random events that are all geared towards the factions. So they work to give you this nice little dynamic site that you could. Now, he put it in the burning town, I'm guessing, doesn't actually have a name. So he just put it on the map, which is another kind of advantage. Because I'm looking at now, like, he put it as Glavice, but it doesn't have to be. It could be anywhere. So really, this whole thing, town with a problem, right? You could take this, turn it into something very generic, and just drop it when your party's approaching a town or anything. So it makes it really handy, because Twilight 2000, at least part of the element is you're playing, on this map. You're playing in Poland. I thought, well, it's at least one of the places you can play. I think because you could play in Sweden, right? You could play in Poland. Anyway, if you're just assuming you're playing in Poland, you're basically doing a huge hex crawl. So you're constantly in need of different things. You're constantly coming across different locations, and these sorts of kind of scenarios where you've got all these pieces in play in this site, you get to lean on all your wandering, say your wandering encounters or your random encounters, because they're geared towards types of things as opposed to specific things. So you can just dump in, here in the burnt town, the Queen of Pain is the Marauders. So if I get a random encounter with the Marauders, that just means the Queen of Pain. If I get one with civilians, well, it's people of the town, and so on and so forth. So really great system. And I feel like on the oops, hold on. Tristan says, before I get ahead of myself, Tristan says, I think Twilight 2000 shares a lot in its DNA with old school style hex crawling and emergent storytelling. Yes, for sure. So the other thing I guess I should talk about is the mechanics of playing. Now, a lot of stuff Jack was handling, but from a player's standpoint, and this is what I was going to mention before, which might have been before what I'd forgotten to turn my post on public. In on your sheet, right, you have these ratings, and then you have the base dice. The system itself, it works. It's very easy and simple. What I was saying before is that you have these ratings, but the ratings, they don't do anything to my knowledge. They really are just, there's a table in, I think, the player's manual, maybe, where you will cross-reference the ratings. It's basically, it's really not dissimilar than some of the numbers. And like, your strength is 18, but really the important thing is the +3 more than the 18. Though, yes, you may have stuff that adds to those numbers at some point. It's kind of similar to that, right? Where those ratings, see if I can find, those ratings don't mean a whole lot. Not that they're not bad. See, but you basically just using the rating. You're just using the rating to cross-reference on that. The die type. Now the die type. Let me open the dice here. The die type worked very well. It was very easy for us to grok, understand, and follow. So there are either a few different die sizes. You can see here, D6 at the bottom, and then D8, D10, D12. I'm trying to see, what do I have? I'm missing the. Hold on a minute. I was missing the. Let's see. I think that's all of them. D6, D8, D10, D12. Yep, I got them all. So you've got these dice. Now all you're looking for is successes. And I think you might need more than one success for some things, but for the most part, you've kind of got your crit fail, and then you've got your success on the other side, like that on the D6. And then same thing, you get more numbers. I think it's 6. I don't know I forget how it works exactly with how many, but on the 8-sided die, there are 3 different successes. So you can get a success basically on 6, 7, or 8. 6, 7, or wherever 8 is. Where's 8? There you go. And 8. You also get success. And then on same thing for your 12s, it's even more so. It's 6 through 12, and then on the 12 you get multiple successes. So when you're rolling dice, and we were playing, Jack has the box set, he's got these dice. What I like about it is you're just looking for those, you're looking for those bullseye kind of numbers, right? That's all you have to do. So what'll happen is you're like, okay, when you have to do something, you're driving, right? So this is the kind of the other neat thing. You say, okay, I'm driving. All right, so you take if you notice here, and I'll zoom in, right? So driving is an agility skill. Yeah, so you have your attributes and then your skills. So agility is the attribute, driving is a skill. So you notice here there's 2. I've got 2. So I have skill in driving, and I've got, I've got my score. So I would take in this case, I would take the 10-sided die. What did I not get a 10? Oh, I think I forgot to get a 10. I got 2 8s. I didn't get the 10. I know it doesn't really matter, but what the heck? Where are we? Yeah, so I would say, okay, I could take my 10-sided die, and I would take my 8-sided die, and I would roll these 2 dice. And then I roll those 2 dice, and if I get successes, then I succeed. And you can push, which I think you could take stress or damage from pushing, but pushing, like in Call of Cthulhu, and I think like in other Freely games, you can push. You cannot push a die that comes up that kind of crit miss. So if I crit missed, then I could push, but I can only push with one die. Now, if you don't have driving. So let's say now I was doing something with mobility. I don't have mobility. Well, then I just roll that, just roll the D10. So easy peasy, right? Now, if you have an advantage, so someone says like, well, I can help you, say with the driving, like I can help you drive. I can be your rally car racer, and I can be your guy looking at the map saying, left. Well, forget. I know it's not. I know it's more complicated than that, but left 17 degrees, whatever it is that they give you, and the GM says, okay, +1. Well, you don't add a number to your die. You just upgrade the die size. So then you say, well, okay, well, now I don't know. I don't know if it's worth better to go up to the whatever. So let's say I could get 2. Let's say I got 2. I got 2 pluses because maybe something else is good. We got GPS or something. I don't know. Got good tunes on the radio. First thing you do is say, okay, I can upgrade my 10 to a 12. That's 1. And then I can upgrade my 6 to, my 8 to a 10. Sorry, my 8 to a 10. So instead of rolling a 10 and an 8, I'm rolling a 12 and a 6. Really easy to manage. And I think everything works that way. Okay, combat, you're rolling on the same thing. You're rolling. So if I'm shooting my assault rifle, ranged combat, I would roll a B and a D. I'd roll the D10 and I'd roll the D6. All right. It's real easy. It's really easy to manage as a player. As we were all new or newish, so there's always going to be some extra work on the GM side to get your thing straight. But I think that just saying like, okay, +1. Now I don't remember him giving us any negatives. I'd have to look in the book to see what you're supposed to do. Or do you drop down die sizes, or do you ask for more successes? I'm not sure. So I don't know how that part works. It doesn't seem like it came into play super much or at all. So there could be a wrinkle to that, but that's it. And then the ammo, you have a rate of fire, and you have your magazine size, and you roll for how many magazines you have, and you basically just put notes where you're spending ammo, and then obviously you cross out those things. I don't remember really how to deal with the numbers. These numbers on the weapon stuff is a little bit more opaque to me. Jack handled it. I think he'd ask like, well, what's your crit value? And it's 3, which I'm not exactly sure what that means. Obviously, if we were playing regularly, I'd want to figure that out. Initiative uses cards. We didn't get into that much combats, but you shuffle cards and pick cards, I think. And then we did get one when it was surprise. I think we got the first. We got equal to the number of people in our party, which was 4, the 3 players plus our NPC. We ended up getting the first 4 cards initiative. And I don't think I think once you have them, you have them. I don't think you rotate them. Because I remember in the climactic firefight, I think we stayed on the same initiative, which, someone could tell me, oh, that's wrong. I don't know. The bottom line from my standpoint, it was a lot of fun. Now, I have nostalgia for the original Twilight 2000, so I am by far not a, I'm not just a unbiased player, and I wanted to have fun, and that kind of bias, I think, is what we all want, right? Y'all want to you want to walk into a game wanting to have fun. I think shouldn't be something hard, but it was a lot of fun. It was, given that it's crunchy, at least again from the player standpoint in that game, the crunch did not feel overwhelming to me. The rolling to do stuff was very easy. There's a social component also, which is maybe something I don't love so much, because I think that in a game where I think a lot of the meat is in that social stuff. I don't know that I want it to come down to, there's basically a kind of a spreadsheet. There's you get these modifiers and you roll, and that I didn't love quite so much. I don't know if it's here or where maybe it's in the players. Let me see, because I can't remember where it is. Where's the bookmarks? Tristan says if you draw 4, use a token with the 4 on it. Okay. We kept the same token, so we didn't even do that. We just held the cards. But that totally makes sense. We did use the chits, but we didn't. We just picked some chits and stuck with them. Let me see if I can find about the doing the social part, because that was interesting, and I don't know. It was it persuasion? Let's see. I know one of our players was a U.S. spy who was posing as a Polish citizen. So they had to use persuasion to convince people they were native Polish, which to me is kind of a good way of doing it, right? Because it's not something that you could role play out so much. It's kind of like, can you hide your accent in this moment or other mannerisms that give you away as a non-native? And I thought persuasion actually is a kind of a good thing for that, and it makes sense in this setting. War III, kind of everyone's the enemy. You know, you're a Russian and you're deep in this Polish territory. It's not friendly to you, or you're an American, right? It like that, I think, makes a lot of sense. We didn't use persuasion too much, but let's see. Okay, so social conflict is chapter 4. So let's look here. Okay, I can close this out. So here's how it works. Social combat. Sometimes you can make things go your way without resorting to violence. Instead, you trick or convince your opponents without drawing your weapons. This might even be possible in the midst of combat. For nonviolent combats, use the persuasion skill. Before you roll, you must state the stakes of the roll. What you want to achieve, what you ask of your opponent must be within reason. No NPC will agree to do anything you want or act directly against their own interests, no matter how good your roll is. That's obviously a great note, right? But so you have to say the stakes of the roll, which is fine. The referee is the final say on what's possible to achieve given the current situation. That's fine too. Even if you succeed on your persuasion roll, your opponent is entitled to ask for something in return if the referee deems it reasonable. It is up to you to accept the agreement or not. So far we're good. Now here's where I felt like it's a little bit, it felt to me, and I may just get used to this system too much, right? This is just in the moment kind of thing. So here you go, you're negotiating. Your chances of manipulating someone successfully are affected by your negotiating position. Each of the following factors modifies your roll by +1 or more at the referee's discretion. Now, remember, you're going up and down die sizes, right? So here's the kind of things. You have more people on your side. What you ask for doesn't cost anything to your opponent. Your opponent has suffered damage or stress. Your opponent is sick. Your opponent is your captive. You've helped your opponent previously. You present your case very well. You outrank your opponent, and it only applies same nationality, military stuff, okay? And then you can also drop down die sizes if your opponent has more people than you do, if you're asking for something valuable or dangerous, if your opponent has nothing to gain, if you're held captive, if you're having trouble understanding each other, you're not the same hex, which is more than 5 meters apart. So I guess you're yelling across a crevasse. Your opponent outranks you. Okay, again, military thing. So you kind of add these together and you do your die size. But I felt like this is the die size. Doing those things, it's kind of a lot. I mean, I just put them back in the bag, but I'll pull them out again. Going down a couple, like if you're a D10 and you go drop down, I mean, you can drop down quick. Going from, and now I guess here's the thing, like I would be fine not rolling with it and just doing like what I would do in BX or something and just like have the discussion and kind of weigh it out, right? And do that. I kind of like these more for, I was thinking like these actually work really well for reaction type things. If you need to roll reactions, then these things make a lot of sense for the, being more, if not positive, like, hey, we're your friend, at least intimidated or willing to not be hostile versus like that power about, right? That power positions. Like maybe they're not, it's almost like another vector in that reaction, right? It's not even whether they like you or dislike you. It's not like they're friendly or unfriendly, but you could use these to kind of determine if they really don't like you and they've got all these factors on their side, then yeah, maybe they will attack you. Maybe that's where you get that hostile. Or you get, well, they really don't like you, but you've got more people, all this other things. It's like, well, they're going to end up, they don't like you, but they're going to work with you because they feel like they can't not work with you, or it would be super bad if they didn't work with you. That kind of thing. But I think in terms of the negotiation, I felt like it maybe was a little bit over. I mean, you still have at least. I mean, at your worst case scenarios, you have a 1 in 6 chance of success, which isn't awful. 16%. So it's not even like you need a 20 out of 1d20. You gotta it's not a great chance, but you have, a chance. And hopefully you can figure out some things here. Maybe there's a way to do it, some kind of back and forth, or you can kind of figure it out where you can do, because the way it ended up, I think it worked out with us, is we kind of made a pitch and then we'd have the roll. And I feel like it would have been, maybe we could have figured out, and I have some kind, I guess what I would say is like, okay, if there are 3 factors against us, can we equalize those factors? Well, they have more guys than you. And you say, well, we show, I don't know, we'll sweeten the deal. Like we have our initial offering, and you say, okay, well, that's okay. Your opponent, but that maybe you've made it okay, and your opponent has nothing to gain. By helping you, you've addressed that. Now they're going to gain something. So that takes that one off. But they've still got more people on their side, and you're asking for something valuable or dangerous. So now it's like, okay, well, now there's another step. Can I do another step? Can I do another step? Or like, we can't. And that's maybe I'd want to get more of the conversation. And the way it played that night is it didn't play so much as a conversation. It plays just like, make a pitch, here are the modifiers, roll. And I think if we did it more in that back and forth, like how many things can you do to kind of equalize it? Because this stuff, there's some of it where you want to have, I'd probably want to have one black box thing of like, you don't know if they like you or not, unless they're being really obvious, or what is in their heart of hearts. You don't know. So maybe that's kind of a black box number. So you can't ever get it exact, but maybe you can get, and this is even where you could have it like a charisma thing, or how many of these modifiers do you know can you get? Like, we know we've got this, we know we got more people, whatever, right? I think there's really be a way to do this to make it fun, to keep some of the stuff where, it's a nice mechanical way. So it doesn't feel like I, as a GM, are just kind of ad hoc, just telling you no. It's like, okay, well, look, you're surrounded, they took you captive, and blah, blah, blah. And that's why they're treating you as such, as opposed to treating you like you're a king. Some of that stuff's obvious, some of the stuff might be less than obvious, but I think I just like that back and forth more. All right. Well, I thought I was going to have time to do more stuff, but I ended up talking about Twilight 2000 the whole time, which is actually fine and dandy with me. It was a really fun time. Maybe I'll put together kind of a more formal sort of review where I'll go over a little bit of things my kind of Jack, he likes to do this thing after games where he'll say, give me your roses, thorns, and buds, basically things you love, things you didn't love, and things you might want to do differently. So that's maybe a good thing to maybe do for things like this, is I'll put together try to be a little bit more concise with sort of what I liked, what maybe I didn't like so much, and what maybe I think I might do differently. Let's see. Tristan says, I'd be curious to see what the chance of success for each die type is. Well, I think, Tristan, it's pretty easy to calculate. I believe that all the results on the dice that are 6 or more are successes. So 1 and 6 on a D6, 3 and 8 on a D8, and then 4 out of 10, and then 6 out of 12. So basically on the 12, you've got a 50% chance, and you can get more than one success on the 12. So that's great. On a 10, it's a little bit less. So, it kind of stacks up. So it works out. It's pretty nifty. And if you're using the dice, and if you got the box that want to use the dice, they've got the things marked on there. So you don't even have to do the bit of looking like, did I get 6 or more? You just look, if you see they see the reticle or whatever. I called it a bullseye before, I guess. Reticle, whatever it is. If you see the reticle, you succeed, and you just count your reticles. And then sometimes you could do things with extra successes. I know with that's one of the things with combat. If you're shooting your weapons and you get multiple, if you get more successes than you need, right? You 1 to shoot the guy, and then you get 2 more, let's say. Then you could do things with extra successes. You can do things like add more damage. I don't remember exactly what it is, but you can do more. So it's just pretty nifty, and it works. It's just pretty nice. That's kind of similar in a different way than like my dice pool thing, where I just look for 6s, and then you don't have to worry about anything else. Just 6s. Just look for 6s. And this is just look for those reticles, and just moving up and down. I add dice to the pool or take dice away. They do the up and down the die size. But it works pretty well, and you get it. And, you could probably figure out, like, okay, obviously you go from 1 in 6 chance at the low end to 50% chance at the high end, and then in between, a 1 out of 3 out of 8, right? 4 out of 10. So the numbers aren't super clean. I guess it would be 2 out of 5. I guess on the 4 out of 10, right? 4 out of 10, 2 out of 5. Whatever, figure it out. But you get this. Things go up. And I like that you can be, you can still get that thing where it's like, well, look, I had horrible empathy, One thing I know I would do differently, just to kind of put a bow in it, is I like to talk in games. I end up being, it's just, look, it's my nature. I'll end up not necessarily taking lead, but I have to kind of hold myself back sometimes not to be the speechifier, or at least to get in the mix. And I realized, I was remember when I made my, because you do this kind of as an array, you can sort of set these to what you want. I thought like, maybe good to try a low empathy, and I just won't be the social one. But then I ended up doing a fair bit of talking, and I was like, I probably shouldn't give myself, know yourself, right? Know yourself as a player. Don't, if in the real world you like to be social and get in these interactions with people, then don't gimp your character's social thing that you're going to have to use. The other thing is it's definitely with a it'll all come out in the wash in a campaign. But if you're going to play one shot of this, I highly recommend doing it, either playing it or running it, depending on who you are and what you got access to. But if you're running it, definitely let your players know kind of somewhat before they make their characters what the scenarios, because it definitely not. I wouldn't call it a trap, because like I said, in a campaign you'll run into all kinds of different things, but you could definitely have characters who could be very much less effective for a particular scenario than others. And if that's your one shot of the game and you picked a bunch of stuff out and it's like, okay, if I picked out somebody like, yeah, they're a ranger and they're really good at being in the outdoors and all this stuff with navigation and whatever, we didn't need, in our game last night, we didn't need, I didn't have heavy weapons. We definitely, I don't know, mobility, I think it came up to play a little bit. We didn't need survival really much at all. We had the doctor with medical aid, so I'm glad I didn't take medical aid. Like, there were just things like recon was, I think we used it one. There's some things that are just a very limited use or not so much use. And if I put a bunch of stuff into that, even the tech actually came up a couple times. Well, we weren't heavy on the tech, but I don't feel like I didn't have enough to do. But I could definitely see, depending on what you make and stuff, that you could kind of feel like you brought the wrong person. You brought the wrong character to the scenario. So I would definitely suggest telling people, hey, this is going to be an urban scenario where you're interacting, right? Or we're going to be doing a cross-country travel. And obviously, like I said, if you're playing a campaign, you get enough of everything, everyone will have these kind of things. But in a one-shot, it's a risk. All right, folks. I got a jet. Hopefully this was, I don't know. If you're interested in Twilight 2000, I will have more. I did recently get in the post La Black Madonna, so I will probably look at this soon. So I got that going for me. Apparently there's a really strong community around Twilight 2000. They're not many, but they are fierce, I guess is somewhat like what Shakespeare said. Anyhow, so check those. I think they have a Discord. I'm not on it or anything, but this is what Jack was telling me, that they have a pretty pretty active community around Twilight 2000. Active and opinionated. So that's it, folks. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. And I'll talk to you later. Bye now.